You ever notice how the biggest moments, the really profound ones, often show up when things are quiet? Well, we're going to dive into one of those moments today. It's a simple story about a boy watching snowflakes fall and a sound that connects him to his faith, his family, and a really timeless piece of wisdom. So let's get right into it. So, picture this. It's the very first day of the new year, and there's this peaceful silence hanging in the air. You know the kind I'm talking about, the kind you only get with the first snowfall. Everything's just still. And then, right into that quiet, something cuts through. A sound. And it completely changes the feeling of the moment, pulling your attention away from what you're seeing to what you're hearing. Okay, so what exactly does this snowy afternoon look like? Well, it all kicks off with a young boy who's having one of those simple, perfect little moments. Meet Anas. He's on a break from school, and he's just looking out his window, totally mesmerized by the first snowflakes of the year. He's filled with that pure, simple happiness that I think we all recognize, that feeling of watching the world get covered in a fresh blanket of light. So it's right in the middle of this quiet, happy moment that he's interrupted. Let's dig into the sound that Anas hears and what it really means. Anas hears the Adhan coming from a mosque nearby. But that begs the question, what exactly is the Adhan? Okay, so the Adhan is the Islamic call to prayer. It's recited by someone called a muezzin. That's the person at a mosque who's chosen to lead and recite the call. And it's a sound that Muslim communities hear 5 times every single day. The Adhan really has 2 main jobs. First, it's basically an announcement, a public signal that it's time for one of the 5 daily prayers. And second, it's an invitation. It's calling the community to come together to worship. So when Anas hears this call, he doesn't just listen. He actually joins in. He listens really carefully and starts to repeat the words right along with the muezzin. It seems like a small act, right? But as we're about to find out, it's packed with meaning. Now this is where a simple action turns into a really profound lesson. Anas's mother, Amina, has been listening, and she comes in to share some pretty incredible wisdom with him. Amina praises him, telling him his recitation is beautiful and that what he's doing, repeating the call, is a very good thing. And this little bit of encouragement opens the door for a much deeper teaching. To explain why it's so special, she brings up a hadith. Now, a hadith is basically a recorded saying or teaching from the Prophet Muhammad. They're a huge source of guidance in Islam, so whatever she's about to share, it's a big deal. And here it is. This is the absolute core teaching of our story. The Prophet taught that just by repeating the words of the Adhan when you hear it, you get the exact same blessing as the person who is actually calling the prayer for the entire community. Wow. I mean, this just shows such a beautiful principle, right? The action itself is so simple. You're just repeating some words. But the spiritual reward is huge, an equal share in the blessing. It really shows that active, mindful participation, no matter how small you think it is so deeply valued. So how do all these different pieces, the quiet snow, the public call to prayer, and this very private teaching, how do they all come together to create this one really meaningful moment? Well, after he learns this, his mother asks him to say the call to prayer again, but this time just for her, and he does. And this right here, this transforms it. It goes from a public ritual that he was just echoing to this personal, intimate act of connection between a son and his mother. It grounds that big spiritual lesson in love. And this really brings us to the beautiful contrast at the heart of the story. On one hand, you've got the snowflakes. They're a silent, visual gift from nature, a moment of external wonder. But on the other hand, you have the Adhan, a clear, audible call to faith, an invitation to turn inward and reflect. It just goes to show you that you can find meaning in both the world you see and the faith you feel. And that really brings us to our final thought. Anas found this incredibly deep connection in what started out as just a simple, quiet afternoon. It leaves us with a question to think about. In our own busy lives, when we're watching our own snowflakes fall, what are the calls that we're listening for? And where do we find meaning in the quiet moments of our day?